to the hey everyone, welcome to the USBN, our Basketball Weekly podcast. I'm your host, Anna Ruth Riggins. I am so excited to be here, and this is just a great opportunity. So, before we get into this podcast, I wanted to just introduce myself a little bit and just also talk about what we're going to be talking about. So, like I said, my name is Anna Ruth Riggins. You can follow me on Instagram, Anna Ruth Riggins 13. And I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I went to the University of Georgia and studied journalism with a certificate in sports media. I grew up, my dad is a football and lacrosse coach, so all things sports. Just a little bit more about me. I don't know a ton about this, so I'm super excited to just learn more with you guys. And I think that this is just such a super cool, like niche sort of realm in sports that needs more coverage. So I'm super excited to be providing that with you guys. I am a recurring production coordinator for ESPN, and I traveled with SEC Nation this past fall, getting to do all things SEC football, which was super cool. Got to cover the first 12-team college football playoff, which ended this past Monday. And so I am just super excited once again to be here. And so let's just tip this off with what is USBN. And so what basketball are we going to be talking about? Is this the NBA? Is this college basketball, high school? Like, what are we talking about? And so first off, the USBN stands for United States Basketball Network. And this is a broadcast network dedicated to professional basketball teams and players in the U.S. outside of the NBA. And there is not a better person to bring on for this other than Brian Caswell himself. And so he's the person that got me into this. He's the guy running all of our social media, and he is the face of the USBN, honestly, in my opinion. And so I thought it'd be a great idea to bring him on and do sort of a Q&A just to inform you guys on what we're going to be talking about on this podcast. Why does this podcast exist? What is USBN, and just to get more into it. So I'm super excited to bring him on and for y'all to just learn more about what the USBN is. So I'm going to bring him on now, and we'll just get right into it. All right. Thank you, Brian, for joining us. Super excited to have you here. If you just want to give a little bit of an introduction about yourself, that would be great.
Thank you. How are you doing tonight, Ruth? Anna Ruth.
Yes, I'm good.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, super excited to be here. Super cold here in Charlotte, but we're getting through it. But yeah, if you just want to tell us about yourself, how you got into USBN, why you're so passionate about it, because I know that you are, just to get our audience fired up about what we have to look forward to.
Wow, that's a loaded question right there. You know, at first I would just I start by just my passion for basketball. I love basketball. It's been a big part of my life from the time I can remember. I was that kid that literally sat out on the front door of my steps. I lived right behind my elementary school, and I would just sit. I would just listen till I could hear the first basketball dribble on the blacktop, and I knew that's when players were starting to show up to play. And then I would just shout out, "Mom will be home later," and just grab my basketball and run to the woods and up to the court. And we played back then every day. Every day in the summer, every day in the weekend, after school. Um, I was blessed to be in an area with just a ton of players around me, much older, and which really helped me, my development. And then obviously as I got into middle school, making my first team, the eighth grade team, and then playing in high school, and then playing in college. And then it was, roughly after college, the reality kind of hit that there wasn't any more basketball after that, because NBA wasn't an option back in those days. Overseas was kind of, just really wasn't much of an option either. It was very unknown to go overseas. Um, so like many players my age, it was get out of, get a real job, kind of, so to speak, and your sports days come to an end. And then as I got older and looking back, um, you just start having a lot of regret. You like, man, I wish I would have done this better. I wish I would have known this. I just wish there was more opportunities. So, I think the answer to your question is a lot of stuff that what I do for the USBN is really to try to help players and men today that obviously they haven't experienced what I experienced yet, which is just get older and you see when that window shuts and that door shuts, and all of a sudden you realize there is no more basketball to be played. But that's a discussion that people should be having 35, 40 years old, not 20, 21 years old. The day that you graduate from college, especially if you've been one of the best players almost all your entire life, and at your high school, at your college, and then for it just to be like, what to do next. There's not a lot of options, and I think the USBN is going to start to create a lot more options for those individuals that as soon as their collegiate eligibility runs out and they don't want to go overseas for numerous reasons, and then they don't make the NBA, obviously because it's so hard, but they still love the sport, still want to play the sport. Yeah, I'd like to see many of them have an opportunity to do that. Do what they love, do it for a livelihood. Make enough that can kind of cover their cost of living, and still continue to play. And then for a few of them, the lucky, who knows where their careers might go in a year two, year two, year three, year four after that graduation period. But at least it would give, like I said, I would give anything to go back in time and have like 2, 3, 4, 5 more years of playing basketball after college. I didn't have that, and so a lot of guys, I don't think they know how lucky it is when there's opportunities like teams that would allow them to continue to play after college.
Yeah, so I know that you have spent some time overseas. So can you just talk about your experiences being overseas as a coach and also just how players respond to that?
Yes, you
And it
know,
would be changing as time progresses.
yeah. I mean, yeah. So I was very fortunate to have one of my best friends growing up that was already over there. Actually played basketball for many years overseas, and just so happened it was a period of time in my life that I was available, and he made the offer if I'd come over to Germany, and I did. I had a great host family; they were so nice, and then the team that we worked for and coached with, the Top Star Kangaroos out of Augsburg, Germany, which is just outside of Munich. Man, they were just an awesome organization. Made one of my close friends, American that played for them when I was there, CJ Carr, awesome guy. Um, but it was what I try to tell people is it's so great to go to new places, but for a lot of Americans, it creates loneliness because of not that the place is bad and the people are different, are bad. It's you're away from your culture, you're away from your home, you're away from everything you've grown up knowing and are used to, and it's a very isolated feeling. It's a very unique feeling that all of a sudden things that you're just accustomed to is the opposite, or not acceptable or something like that. I'll give you an example. It took someone finally about 6 months to tell me to shut up and stop saying hello to people on the train or on the sidewalks, because in Germany it's kind of an insult to say hello to somebody that you don't know. Well, I'm from the South. I mean, Southern hospitality. I mean, we say hello to anybody. It's the opposite, right? You pass somebody,
Yeah, I
you
wouldn't
make
do
eye
all
you make eye
that.
contact. You gotta say hello. How are you doing? Things like that. So it's just little things like that. It's just after a while it gets really isolated, it gets really lonely, and you just kind of want to get home. And that's ultimately was my decision. Was like I sat there at night and I was like, God, this is such an awesome opportunity. I love basketball. I love I love working with players. I love the business side of the team, the aspect. the competition, everything, I was like, I just don't want to be doing it here. And then ultimately led me to trying to come back to Atlanta and starting, my other businesses that are very similar to the international club and team that we had in Germany.
Yeah, that's awesome. So obviously it's super hard to play in the NBA. And so how did USBN get started? Obviously it's to provide players that are not going to go to the NBA because there's such a small percentage that go to the NBA. So the USBN comes in, y'all want to provide these opportunities for players in America, don't want to go overseas, can't play in the NBA. So how did the USBN get started?
Well, I'll touch on two topics on that question. First, like we talked about with the NBA, I believe that is the hardest of all sports to participate in. There are a few number of players on a team, and there's only a few teams. Like if you play in the NBA, it's only 450 jobs. You hear that thrown out a lot, but when you really think about it, there's 30 teams, there's 15 players on a roster. It's not like college football where I think 120 players dress, and there's 400 something teams, just in this division. Um, so you think about that, that's a pretty big bottleneck of players that go from, where they are today, playing in college where there's, a larger group of people. And all of a sudden now you have to be like one in a million. I mean, to try to even get that opportunity. The statistics of playing in the NBA are so low, and I see it every day. Like, it's a shame there's so many great players, but it's not like you're not good enough. It's just there's someone out there that's a little bit better, and that person is a little bit better by just like an inch, or he can jump just an inch higher, higher. He's an inch taller. Just little things like that. So I think it's the hardest. And then as far as what the USB is about, our mission is just simply to help teams and players because there's already a bunch of teams that exist. We don't have to create anything new. We're not creating anything here. Um, we know their players every year. Cause I've already mentioned, there's a ton of players that graduate college and they don't have a good opportunity where to go to next if they're not going to make the NBA. And the chances are they're not going to make the NBA because people like LeBron James ain't giving up those seats very
Yeah.
easily, and they're playing for so long. And then there's always a guy like Victor Wembanyama coming over from France. You never even heard of or knew of, and all of a sudden you're like, who's this guy? Well, and he's going to be the number one pick, so that takes one spot away. There's 59 more slots to go. Are you in that top? Are you in that list? The answer is probably no. So there's a great big pool of players between the ages of, all the way from the players who college doesn't work out for them. So you're thinking about 18-year-olds all the way up to, guys who keep themselves and men that keep themselves in really good shape that are 40. So, 18 to 40, that's a big span. And then every year, you have a whole new fresh crop of players kind of available coming in. So anyway, we know that players exist. There's teams that exist. What the USBN is just trying to do is help improve those teams where they can make more money, they can grow their fan base, they can make it more attractive to pay players and to retain players, and make it where players want to stay, with their team versus doing something else like going overseas or giving up on the sport.
Yeah. So I guess my next question is, and this is if you don't know a lot about the USBN, then this might be we might need to explain a little bit more and
Yeah.
expand on that. But so the USBN's, I guess, biggest announcement recently was its 3-year partnership agreement with the NAIA. So can you discuss what this is about and what this means?
Yeah, there's so much opportunity here that it could take an entire show to almost go through them all. But this is truly, as a chairman, somebody on the board of directors for the USBN, that I'm most excited about and just super thrilled to see all the potential opportunities. Um, so we started with a huge whiteboard and looked at what are their strengths and weaknesses for players and teams in the USBN. And then we looked at, partnering organizations that just kind of really filled in the gap of our weaknesses. And like a weakness, for example, is a lot of teams in our space have a hard time finding a good gym to have games at. Well, every NAA school has a decent gym, Um, a lot of times we have a hard time, teams have a hard time finding the right personnel to help with carry out game day operations. And if they wanted to get the right personnel, it probably costs a lot. So, but there's a whole bunch of students in college that are eager to get on the job experience and want to kind of you know get internships and learn how to do this stuff because they're part of their majors or their classes. So
Yeah. Can you
colleges,
give examples of these colleges just so people are aware and know?
well, the NAIA is over, I believe, like 340 schools nationwide, um, across the country. So, um, like, and I'm in Georgia, so there's I think 6 or 7 throughout the state there, and then they're very big in the Midwest and up kind of in the northern Midwest, um, and in the West Coast. I mean, Arizona, LA. There's a lot of schools, and that's the other thing is they provide a regional footprint, which the
Yeah.
USBN is very regional as well. But
Yeah.
I think long term, I mean that partnership, what it does is kind of looking at where I believe the USBN can add value to the schools are in ways that are areas that they need help with too. Money. These aren't Division I schools like the University of Georgia that are getting $100 million contract from a TV network. And I mean, think what did the winner get from the championship football game? 20 million. So that money doesn't exist in the NAIA world. So, but I believe we can help provide some financial gains for them, and then also our players. We're big brothers. Um, they should all be players who are no longer participating in college, have gone through that college. So, um, like our teams that kind of partner with these colleges should be the big brother to help these NAIA players not only develop better as basketball players, but as men, in the future. What does USBN look to get out of this? Again, like I said, we got a resource of students to help out with games and stuff that needs to be done. And like I said, they provide a gymnasium, which is something that teams sorely need in our space. So it's I think you said there's a partnership that just started. This coming up March will be the USBN's first participation in their national championship. USBN will be out in Kansas City promoting their format for their national champion in college basketball, and it'll be a great
Yeah, if
opportunity.
you want to expect them on that too as well, that would be great too. Because I don't think people don't realize, I don't think how big this is. And also just like you're talking about, I mean, it's all over the United States. It's not just the Southeast. It's not just the Midwest. I
Yeah,
mean, this is genuinely, these schools are all over our country, quite literally from coast to coast. So
yep.
it's really just interesting to hear about.
Yeah. I mean, I said that their footprint is the same as our footprint. So everywhere there's a school, there's probably a team close by. So like I said, proximity, it just made a lot of sense to try to pair up. And that's what we're, eventually we're looking to do is find the best schools and the best teams and pair them up together and then let them work together to figure it out. I mean, that's the thing. Like this is a work in process relationship. There's going to be things that we learn, things that we can do better. But at the end of the day, I think every year when we sit down and we say, what is our outcome objectives? And if it was everybody's happy and it looks like we've increased measurements that are all positive in all aspects, and it's a partnership that I think we'll just continue to grow and grow on. But yeah, the NAA is a great organization, and we have a lot in common because you know um, USBN, we're not the NBA. We don't get treated like the NBA. We don't get treated like the WNBA. And then obviously NAA doesn't get, they're not the NCAA Division One, right? They don't get treated like the Southeast Conference teams do and stuff like that. So um, there's a space for everybody. I mean, it's just like, why does high school have ninth grade teams, JV teams, and varsity teams, right? It's the same thing, kind of, and like, college has NCAA Division One, Division Two, Division Three, and then we have NAI, we have JUCO, we have other, I think, leagues or things in there. So I mean, not everything falls in one bucket. But the great thing is there's such a love for the sport. There's so many people who want to play it and love it. Um, there's enough participation out there to really make it work. And actually there's space for us to coexist. And by partnering, I think we just strengthen each other's, where we're trying to, we're like little fish in a big pond, right? Because the NBA caches a big shadow. I mean, here in America, I mean, like you mentioned, like, what is the USBN? Like, a lot of people don't know because they only know about the NBA, because the NBA is so, so successful. It's been around so long. Um, Very few people realize there are other professional teams, in across the country outside of the NBA. And that's what I hope, we want to continue to let those people know about.
Yeah, I think that's also the main point that we're trying to get out of this intro first podcast, starting off and kicking off, is that this is something that people don't know a ton about, but that we're trying to raise more awareness and more and give more information about. And so I think my last question, honestly, is what does the future of this look like? What does the future of this season look like? What can we look forward to?
Um, I believe the USBN can become the third most competitive league in the world. The NBA is going to be number one. The G League, I would argue, is probably number two, because the G League really is just the extension of the people who are in the NBA, but they can't travel, or there's only a 15 seat limit at the games.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do with those other draft picks that you get? You don't want them just doing nothing. So there's a G League. So I really believe like the G League teams are probably some of the best players and teams else in the world. And then if all the Americans stayed here instead of going overseas, and we took those Americans and we put them on teams, here, um, I would feel very confident believing that best team in the USBN could go anywhere in the world and compete against any other team, any other top league team, and very competitively. So, you know, um, my experience of being overseas, you learn FIBA's rules, you learn about each country. America is the only country that's not regulated by FIBA. We're the only country that doesn't have a rewards and regulation system. We don't have a tier system where there's like a League One, a League Two, a League Three, a League Four. We have the NBA, and that's it. I think the USBN eventually will bring together the closest thing to a League Two or Three, and then with the amount of talent that's here in America, that league, I believe, becomes one of the most powerful and leagues as far as competitiveness in the world. And then the other is the USPN's signature event is the United States Basketball Championship. And I believe it can become one of our nation's favorite sporting event, like the NBA Finals, like the Super Bowl, like March Madness, like the college playoff series. I really believe that people could come to, value that period of time when a national champion is named in our space. Currently, we don't have anything like that. That's why the USBN created it. It's part of the reason why the USBN was established, was to say, hey, we don't have a national winner. I mean, the NBA says they're the world's champion. And if they're the world's championship, well, who is the champion of the United States of America? It's
Yeah.
like I said, you just went to the national college playoff championship. Imagine if Ohio State, wasn't able to play Notre Dame because they were in different conferences. And then, Georgia just playing the SEC, and um, who else was in the tournament? But like I said, all you would have is just a bunch of dominant teams at a bunch of conferences, but we would never know who's the best in the country if you didn't have a playoff system that said, look,
Mm-hmm.
we don't care where you're from, what league you are. We're just going to take the best number of teams, put you in a tournament and let you determine who's the winner.
Yeah.
Every other sport does it very well, and for the first time in America, I think we're going to start doing it here with those pro teams nationwide to say the only thing you should care about is, is winning a championship. So, every team's main objective should be to be the best professional team in the country, not in your state, not in your league, but the best in the whole country. So that's certainly, something I've talked about with our guys and our team. It's like we don't want to just be part of a league. We don't want to just win this little event or whatever. We want to, compete against everybody, and we will hopefully at the end of the day, come out and say, yo, we are the best team in the country. That's been our goal from the day one, and that
Yeah.
should be every team's goal.
Yeah. Well, I think that thank you so much, Brian. That was very informative. I love all of this, and love the competitive aspect towards the end, getting to talk about that. And so thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you will be back on at some point soon. So thank you so much for joining us. And then I guess thank you so much to everyone who has joined our live stream. And we will obviously be posting this as well on all of our platforms. We posted our how you can contact us because I am the host, but you guys don't want to just hear me talk the whole time. You don't want to just hear Brian talk the whole time. So we want to hear from you guys, players, coaches, teams, just anyone from the USBN, please, that wants to be on this. Or, someone that also wants to do a Q&A as well. We would be happy to host you on our podcast. We just want to keep this as interactive as possible for sure. And the last thing I'll say is that Brian has gotten our merchandise running for us. And so we are going to be picking one of our viewers that follows us and has shown us some love on this live stream. And we will be reaching out to you on how you can get a free t-shirt on our website. And Brian, you will provide the promo code for them as well, right?
Yes, yes. USBN, after a long years of negotiation with many different companies, we're very excited to partner and now be able to have basically our own team, our own store. But that store is really designated for teams to be able to get their uniforms, get the clothes they need for their players, off the court and on the court, and then also for their fans. So, one of the big goals is USBN will be reaching out to teams, letting them know they can buy their jerseys. But also, any USBN event now with our sponsors, um, for any teams that participate, their uniforms will be paid for. And this goes back to kind of our mission of how do we help teams. We try to make it more financially viable for them and make it easier for them. So, now teams that show up for games that are produced by the USBN, they're going to look great because they're going to have brand new uniforms that are decorative, um, with the logos on them and everything, and players' names and numbers, and then all that merchandise that is created. Fans can buy online. I'm lucky that the Georgia Kangaroos have already been one of the first teams to sign up. We got our store up and going. We've already sold a great deal of merchandise, and we're looking forward to selling more. And then, I think it's just going to help, uh, you know, uh, bring communities together to support the teams more and help build awareness in the communities by having fans walking around town showing off team
I was
gear and
about to
stuff.
say, I gotta get my gear in.
And then players, and then same thing, players. We hope they participate more in promoting the team they play for. They should be proud of the team that they hopefully were recruited by and earned a spot on that team, and wear that logo and that team's name with pride. So, but the USBN also has some of its first apparel out there, and we're just going to be giving away probably about 15, 20 shirts randomly. Just if I like
Yeah.
you, if I hear from you, I might just say, "Hey, I'll give you a shirt." and
Yeah.
you literally
So
can be
go
one of the
like
first
all of our
people.
social media.
Yeah. You have to do something in return. I'm a pretty
Yeah.
stingy guy. I'm not just handing them out to anybody. Yeah. You gotta put some effort into it. And
Yeah.
but you might be chosen, and then you just go online, order it, put in the code. It's free, and then you'll be one of the first ballers or anybody fans walking around with a really cool USBN T-shirt. And and like I said, I look forward to the day just being through, walking through the public and seeing somebody in a USBN T-shirt, not an NBA T-shirt
For
or an
sure.
NCAA T-shirt or something like that. I'd be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so we do have. Thanks for reminding us. We are actively looking to get these shirts some individuals to introduce
Yes.
them to the site to purchase. So we'll be giving those out a lot coming up the next couple of weeks and days.
Yes. So we'll be looking out for our viewers and who's getting passionate. And I think that's the big message of all of this is like, let's get passionate. Let's get some crazy fans out there and
Yeah.
let's just create an awesome, passionate fan base for the USBN as a whole. And so that's what I'm getting from this, and that's what I'm excited about. So once again,
Yeah,
please
I mean, I'm
keep
glad
please
you.
contact us if you want to be on the podcast. We will be in touch. Once again, you can follow me on Instagram, Anna Ruth Riggins 13, and message me if you're interested as well. We just want to get more people on this podcast to talk to and to educate, learn about, hear their stories, just for the USBN as a whole. So I think that's all for me. Brian, did you have something else?
No, thank you. I appreciate your time and enjoyed being on here.
Yes, thank you guys so much, and be on the lookout. We will be announcing our next episode as soon as possible. And once again, we're just so excited about this. And thank you guys all so much for joining and watching. If you're watching this after the live stream, and we just appreciate all of you guys and your support. So thank you guys.